Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I will call the February 11th Select Board meeting to order. I don't believe we have any changes to the agenda. Adding to announcements, so I'll turn that over to Greg for the announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the chair said, we have two additional announcements this evening. First is the Select Board meeting is being audio and video recorded. For our next announcement, I'd like to call the Fire Chief, Chief Cranston, up to the podium.
Thank you, Greg. Select Board Chair, members, Assistant Town Manager, and members of the community, good evening. My name is Michael Cranston, and I have the honor of serving as the Fire Chief of the Nantucket Fire Department. Tonight, I would like to recognize and thank Kenneth Gullickson as he retires from the Nantucket Fire Department's call firefighter force following 23 years of dedicated service. For more than 2 decades, Ken has been a steady and dependable presence in our department. Throughout his time on the call force, he's attended countless trainings, responded to many emergencies, and consistently supported the full-time firefighters whenever needed. His willingness to serve, often on short notice and at personal sacrifice, represents the very best of what a call firefighter stands for. Ken's service has helped strengthen public safety on Nantucket and has directly contributed to the protection of our residents, visitors, and fellow first responders. His commitment to this community has made a lasting impact, and his contributions will not be forgotten. On behalf of the Nantucket Fire Department, the town of Nantucket, and the community we are proud to serve, I want to thank Ken for his dedication, his professionalism, and his many years of service. Ken, we wish you the very best in your retirement from the call department, and we thank you for your service.
And for our next announcement, we have another recognition. Town Clerk Nancy Holmes has been awarded Certified Massachusetts Municipal Clerk, a CMMC designation, by Massachusetts Town Clerks Association. Only 127 of the Commonwealth's 301 town clerks hold this designation. For the full press release, you can find it in today's Select Board packet. The community survey will be launched on March 2nd. The town will launch its 3rd community survey on March 2nd. Residents are encouraged to provide feedback on community priorities. The survey will be promoted through social media ads. Following the survey period, results and comparisons to prior surveys will be shared with town leadership and in the community. Additional announcements this evening. This is a notice regarding application fees and fraud awareness. Please note that applications submitted to the town of Nantucket are public records. Fraudulent actors may monitor these filings and contact applicants by email, sometimes posing as the town and requesting payment. To prevent confusion or scams, please remember that the planning office, including the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Conservation Commission, requires all applications to be submitted prior or with your application. If you receive an invoice or payment requesting payment after submitting your application, contact the planning office directly at 508-325-7587 extension 0 to confirm its authenticity before responding. And finally, just a reminder that town and county offices will be closed this Monday in observance of President's Day. And that is it, Madam Chair.
Are there any opening Select Board comments? announcements? I should just mention that we have 2 board members online this evening. So we'll be taking all votes by roll call, and I'll just make sure that everyone can hear me and I can hear them. Brooke Moore.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. And Tom Dixon.
Here.
Yep. Okay. And we do not have Malcolm McNabb with us this evening.
Yeah, one comment. We received a letter today from RJ Turcott regarding the Cecil Communities that was passed, and I had some questions. And there's some things that I think we as a community have to figure out, because it's how does it mesh with our secondary and our tertiary, because this is allowing undersized lots and some other things if we elect it. So I think there's some work that we need to figure out, but the letter arrived today and you can find it online.
Okay. Update on public comments from prior select board meetings. I have one from February 4th. Amy Eldridge inquired about how responsibilities for sidewalk cleaning and snow removal are divided between property owners in the town in the downtown area. The town's response is the town's responsibilities, as well as those of property owners, are outlined on the town's snow removal webpage. This page explains expectations for clearing sidewalks adjacent to private property and the areas maintained by the town. You can find that information at www.nantucket-ma.gov/1203/snow-rem. Next up, we have public comment for any items this evening that are not otherwise on the agenda. Any comments will be limited to a 3-minute time period. Is there anyone wishing to speak? I see Campbell Sutton.
Good evening, Campbell Sutton. I just had a wonder, I guess. So last year we did quite a bit of work on a master plan. We had a number of meetings that many people went to and collected data, and I haven't seen anything in quite a while. And I'm wondering if it would be possible to request sort of a presentation of where it is, how they're coming along, that kind of thing. When asked at the NP and EDC, which I guess that's Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission, I thought that's where it was sort of going through, but I was told they're not responsible for it. So then I'm sort of up in the air. And I know that the select board gets better attendance or viewership than either the NP and EDC or the planning board meetings. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Great, seeing none, no one online. I will move on to there is no new business. Then we have approval of minutes and treasury warrants.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Sorry, second.
All those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fay,
Aye.
Don Hill, aye. That carries unanimously 4-0. Next up, we have a town manager's report, the Easy Street Flood Mitigation Project update.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask our coastal resiliency coordinator, Leah Hill, and Bill Casey, he's online.
Great. Yes, I see Bill online.
2%. Thanks, Leah.
Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Leah Hill, Coastal Resilience Coordinator. So today I'm going to give an update about the Easy Street Flood Mitigation Project. We're kind of, next slide, Erica. Okay. Okay, so I'll talk about the deliverables that we got from the Coastal Zone Management Grant, which ended in June of 2025, and then the next steps for the project. So going over in a lot of detail, the scope of work for where we left off to the grant, from the grant to full design and permitting. I'll talk about the estimated timeline for that project, and then why we should start this, keep this project going. So that'll be the Easy Street component, and that is on your agenda for the next meeting for the pending contracts. And then I'll give an update about another contract that will be at the same meeting for the coastal resilience plan project prioritization and implementation update. Next slide, please. Okay, so through the grant that lasted about 2 years, we received an existing conditions and flood risk report. We also had a concept design and preliminary feasibility report. So in that report, there were the concept ideas through a lot of community engagement. Those got refined down to 3 design options, which I'll talk about tonight. And then the updated concept design final report, like, brought everything together and spelled out the next steps to continue working on this project moving forward. Next slide. Just to remind everyone, for the flood risk report, that used data from our best available data by the state, and it had the different colors indicate the different timeframes for tidal or daily flooding on Easy Street. These are projections. And within that little square area of the project area, if we, meaning the town and private property owners, take no action, we can expect about $1.2 billion in losses and damages from now out to 2070. Okay, so design flood elevations, just to get everyone on the same level, is equivalent to levels of protection. And this is an engineering thing. We looked at, on the left-hand side are the design flood elevations. This is a NAVD 88, so it's not like existing elevations where you're standing down at Easy Street. They range from 5 up to 8, and then there's different time horizons. So there's the present day, moving to the right, there's 2030, 2050, and 2070. And using the Massachusetts Coastal Flood Risk Model, we can predict, okay, at a certain level of protection, what is that going to protect us against for each storm? So for this project, there's 2 different design flood elevations. There's the 6.5, which would be the adaptable road raising one. And today, that would protect us against the 6.7% annual exceedance probability, or what people call the 15-year storm. Moving out in 2030, that would be about the 5-year storm, 2050, 3.5-year storm, and then by 2070, it would protect us against high tide flooding. If we choose the 8 feet NAVD 88 design flood elevation today, that would protect us against the 1% annual exceedance probability, or what people call the 100-year storm. But that is misleading because it doesn't happen every 100 years. It actually happens more frequently. 2030 would be the 20-year storm, 2050, the 12.5-year storm, and then 2070, it would protect us against the 2-year storm. Next slide, please. So I won't go into these designs in a lot of detail. There has been a lot of community outreach and engagement and presentations to the select board, but I do want to remind everyone that there are 3 design options on the table. Only one will be moving forward. One is the bulkhead expansion and elevation. The middle one is the adaptable road raising to 6.5 feet NAVD 88. That would be, in the near future. And then if that needs to go to a higher design flood elevation, it would be built in such a way that it could do that. And then the third one is road raising straight to that 8 feet NAVD 88 design flood elevation. This is a slide that was in the final report. It's conceptual cost estimates, so take these with a grain of salt. Again, we are just at the concept level design right now. There's lots of questions, there's lots of unknowns. So for the bulkhead expansion and elevation, that estimation is a little over 47 million. Adaptable road raising to 6.5 feet NAVD 88 is about 58 million. And then road raising to 8 feet is about 62 million. So again, as the project and the design gets refined, generally those costs go down. Next slide. Okay, so to just sort of orient us where we are within the project phases, we are at the conceptual planning phase. We do have funding from an article at a town meeting in 2025 to move whatever the chosen design is to full design and permitting. And I just wanted to talk about the timelines here. Construction is not happening tomorrow. These resiliency projects take a lot of time for planning. Again, we've been working on it for 2 years now. We can expect another many years for the planning process. And then permitting can range anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 years. It's really a big unknown. For the construction, we're estimating that that'll probably take 2 years because of the moratorium of construction downtown during our peak season. So that would be like a start and stop situation over 2 years. And then of course, for all of the resilience projects, there's operations and maintenance that need to happen as well. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the scope of work. I know there's a lot of text on the slides, in the next couple of slides as well, but I want to go into detail on these first 2 slides because the goal of task 1 is to gather all of the missing data that we have and to answer all of the questions that we've received from the public, from the select board, from the stakeholders. So that's really the goal of task 1, is to be able to answer those questions so that you all as the select board can make an informed decision on which design to move forward with. So subtask 1.1 is enhanced graphics for alternatives. So we have 3D design graphics right now. What this would do is make them more photorealistic, because what we heard from the community is, well, what is this going to look like, when it's built? It's really hard for people to picture for the different design options. So it would take the existing conditions today, what Easy Street looks like today, and then it would use the designs to incorporate into those photorealistics so that people can kind of gather a sense of, if you go down to Easy Street and the road is raised, what is it going to look like? If the bulkhead is raised, what is that going to look like? The second one is design flood elevation. So this would develop an internal protocol to integrate the local tide gauge data that we have from the NOAA tide gauge down at the steamship into those design flood elevations. So we've heard questions about that too. And we want to be able to use that tide gauge data that we have that's localized to add into that. I do want to say that the tide gauge data can give us sea level rise from looking backwards. So from today back to 1965, we can look at the sea level rise. What it does not do is project forward. So, so we need to take that into consideration too. And that's why you need to use different models to be able to figure out the design flood elevation. It would also have an internal work group so that for this project and for figuring out the design flood elevations, we're all on the same page. We can use this protocol for all of the resiliency projects, from the Francis Street Beach Resiliency Project to any other downtown project. With that being said too, we're going to develop DFEs for areas for Brant Point, the core downtown, and then the Washington Street area, because we heard comments from the community is, okay, if I want to do something on my property, what should the height be? And so this would be guidance for them. We're not, there's no bylaw or anything like that saying you have to go to this design flood elevation, but we can start with some guidance. The third subtask is additional coastal modeling. So that is using the 3 designs that we currently have and determining their performance for each type of storm, coastal storm. And then it would also help us figure out if there's any adverse or positive impacts on abutting properties. It's another question we got. 1.4 is a feasibility study for a resilient pump station, which would indicate the location, the size, and the co-benefit use. So throughout this whole project, we've always said that we need a pump station within this project area. if anything gets overtopped during a storm, if it rains really heavily, where is that water going to go? We already have stormwater flooding in this for this corridor. And so a pump station is needed. So that would identify where we could have that pump station and how much it would cost and what we need in it. The feasibility study for reuse of existing force main to mitigate downtown flooding. So there is a force main that is either decommissioned or soon to be. So we would look to see, can we use that pipe? Is it wide enough to be able to accommodate any rainfall, any stormwater that could be pumped from Easy Street out to the sewer treatment facility? Now, this is not in the scope, but simultaneously, I'm also working on another scope for a downtown groundwater rise model. And that is another big question that came up. And it will also help inform which design to move forward with, because we know the groundwater is very high downtown, but we don't know what is the projections in the future. Like, when is that water actually going to come to the surface? And that will help with the design as well. Next slide. So moving on, some more stormwater subtasks, stormwater review and GIS assistance, stormwater field inspections, and then creating a stormwater model for identifying peak flows for stormwater for the outfalls there, and how can we divert those, slow them down so that everything just doesn't run down Main Street and get to Easy Street. 1.9 is the FEMA benefit cost analysis. So this would look at the benefits of the project versus the cost of the construction to see how those weigh out. Are the benefits twice the amount of the construction? And so that helps with projects as well. And then the historic structures regulation review. So this would be an addendum to Resilient Nantucket, and it will focus on specific private properties within the project area that would have diagrams and maps and concept designs, permitting requirements, all of the things, so that those private properties with historic structures can be informed about if they want to elevate their homes, if they want to adapt them to, flood risk and all of that. So that was, again, another question that I know the select board had and the public had as well. So we will be figuring that out as well. Next slide. Okay, so some key questions, just to review what task 1 will answer. If the road raising design is chosen, what happens to the structures that are not raised, or will they be raised? How may this impact historic structures in the project area? What will the designs look like compared to what it looks like today? How do we integrate the NOAA tide gauge data into the level of protection? What about stormwater management within the project area? How will the design options negatively or positively impact neighboring property? And then what is the project benefit compared to the construction cost? Excuse me. Task 2 is public outreach and education. And so a lesson learned that we, with the first phase of this project, is we underestimated how much education and outreach we needed for this project. Even though we did a lot more education and outreach than a lot of other town projects, it wasn't enough. So for this phase moving forward, we really want to increase that engagement and also like different ways to engage with people. So that'll range from virtual meetings to excuse me, in-person meetings. Sorry, I have to get a sip of water. It will increase the website content, and then we'll have more social media content as well.
Let me
Next slide.
say, I think that's probably one of the most important things. I've taken some seminars, planning seminars on public engagement. And if you do it right, by the time you get to a town meeting vote or to the big things, people are so sick of hearing it and they understand everything and they're in such support that it's easy, you know? And I think we forget sometimes and we see the public input as a hindrance, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, it's just public's getting in our way. And really, I think this is going to be one of the key things, you know, and we're trying to do a good job of that on the Washington Street project. I think it's going to be, and Washington is a lot smaller and a lot less than what we're talking here. And I think it's going to be crucial. So I'm glad that
Absolutely.
that's in there.
Yeah. Yeah, we really beefed up the outreach and engagement for this portion of it.
And I'm trying to buy you time too.
Thank you so much, Matt. Next slide. Okay, so I'm not going to go over this whole slide, but task 3 would be field investigation. So that would be soil borings and geotechnical to figure out what is actually in the soil underneath the road. We would also install some groundwater wells to be able to monitor the groundwater, and then update the traffic counts because they haven't been updated in a while for this area. It would also, for this task, would figure out the construction route as well, like for rerouting traffic. And then it would also look at private properties, like identifying basements and utilities and sub pumps and how may those have to be updated as well. Next slide. Okay, and then task 4 is the design. So again, only one of the 3 options would be moving forward to full design. That would go to, right now we're at 10% design. That would go to 30% design, 60% design, 90% design, 100% design. And at each of those steps, a cost estimate would be refined as well. I should say this would be the design for the roadway and also for a pump station. Next slide. Okay, we're gonna need a lot of permits. Those are most of them, they're not all of them. So for some of them, you don't know which ones you actually know you need until the geotechnical is done to figure out, you know, what is in the soil. And again, the permitting can range from 3 to 7 years for these types of projects. Next slide. Okay, so to recap.
Hang on, I can't
sure.
help it. You look at that, you wondered how did we build how did we build the docks? How did we go, whaling all the way around the world without all those, without all those
There weren't
reports?
regulations back then.
Yeah, imagine how did we do what we did? How did we move the dreamland without all that paperwork to lift it up? I just, anyway,
Yeah.
Thank you.
It probably took less time.
Unbelievable.
So again, we're at the concept design, which is the 10%. We do have funding to go whatever design is chosen by you all to full design and permitting. Construction is not included in the scope of work, but there will be construction ready bids for for the scope of work. And so we're years out from construction. But if you can go to the next slide, Erica. I'm not going to go over this. It's just another way to look at the timeline and how long it may take. Next slide. Okay, so there's been lots of previous community engagement and feedback, and that will be continued through the next phases. The scope provides essential decision-making tools for the select board and the community. Funding and momentum are already in place, and continuing ensures efficient use of funds and readiness for future state and federal grants. If we pause this project, we're risking losing momentum, grant competitiveness, and prior investment values. Construction is not happening tomorrow, but it would be coming in, maybe 7 to 10 years, best case scenario. Risks would increase if the project is delayed. So very obvious, but pausing the project does not pause flooding from stormwater, coastal storms, high tide, and groundwater, which we're all already seeing down at Easy Street. Pausing would interrupt community participation before a preferred design is picked, probably causing confusion. And delays increase the likelihood of emergency repairs, which generally are more expensive and less effective because you can't actually plan what you want to do there. I just wanted to put in there that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has figured out that for every dollar invested in disaster resilience planning generates about $13 in return of avoided costs. It's probably more on Nantucket because everything's more on Nantucket. And future solutions become more costly and complex the longer action is postponed. Again, delaying action increases risk, cost, and uncertainty. So continuing the project keeps Nantucket proactive, informed, prepared, and financially responsible. So that's the end of the Easy Street update. I don't know if we want to stop here for questions or if you want me to, I have one more slide that talks about the CRP update, which would be also on the next meeting's contract.
Do you have some more questions?
Well, we can see if anyone has questions maybe for Easy Street.
Well, I had a couple of questions
Sure.
that I jotted down. I guess my one concern is that some of the data is it's based on state projections. And now that we've gathered some data since the designs were done of the reality up to now,
Mhm.
obviously it's not what's going forward. Should we be rediscussing that with the state in terms of what the projections are to make sure that we're designing this properly? That's one.
Do you want me to answer that?
Sure.
Okay, so that's in task 1 under that design flood elevation would be determining how to incorporate the tide, the local tide gauge data into those models, and then coming up with a protocol that would be used for the resiliency projects moving forward. So that we've heard that from a lot of different stakeholders, and that's how we'll be addressing that.
Okay. Two other things.
Sure.
I mean, this is a very densely populated area with a lot of commercial real estate that's really valuable. Say that we're going to like the maximum where we're doing the 8-foot road raise. Have we fully identified what we might be in a position to have to take by eminent domain to make this project happen, both for the road and having it function around it, and potentially for a site for a pump station?
Yeah, so that would be all, that's all worked into the scope too, is to identify those areas that would, if they would have to be taken by eminent domain. And then also like if the road is raised, how is that going to affect the driveways there, and the different buildings? So that would all be worked out within the scope.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot. And that's when people are going to get really engaged, shall we
Yes.
say, in terms of
Absolutely.
property owners. And then my last question was, you mentioned the existing force main. I don't know how much discussion there's been with the sewer department on that or with town administration, but I thought we were abandoning that because it currently runs through the former fire station property, and it was supposed to no longer be an interruption in that piece of real estate. So I don't know how real that thought is.
Okay. Yep. So the scope, I forgot to mention, had been, there's been input and comments from almost every department, I would say, within the town. And yes, I'm working closely with Charles, who's here, and David. So that came up as like an investigation, like, can we use it? If we could use it, would it have to be moved from the fire station, out a little bit?
Rerouted? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an option that instead of having to pump the stormwater back into the harbor, which has water quality implications, could it be pumped to the sewer treatment facility where it could be treated and go down to groundwater.
Okay, those were mine for now. Brooke or Tom, do you guys have anything? Okay, I guess.
Yeah,
Matt?
I've asked for the tide gauge data. I wanted to look to see what like sort of the rolling 3 or 5 year increments are to see what is the trend over the last few years. So that was number one, and I've already talked about that during crack. I think this is really important that we're doing this. I've heard a few people who are like, well, maybe we can put it off. We won't do this. We won't take that, or, maybe it can take a little longer. We have these other things. And really, if we don't get started on these things now, like at a really good level, then, we're going to be so far behind. I think we want to be, so what is it? We want to go where the puck's going to be, not where the puck is now. We want to look ahead. And one of the things that I keep thinking about, a couple things I keep thinking about. One is like in the old days, we were pretty smart. When it was near water, over water, the building was able to be picked up. It didn't have a full basement under it, et cetera. It was able to be picked up and moved. And it was put over water with pilings because the water could run underneath it, et cetera. So when we're looking at this, I hope that's one thing we look at here, because that would make all of it, maybe we don't have to go to the full 6. We can go shorter as long as everybody's ready to go further when they have to. So there are things like that I hope we look into, because we were pretty good about that then. And the other thing I hope we do, and the sort of in the master planning process or in this process, is think about things like the High Line and the steamship and the truck route, and don't assume they have to be where they are now. We're going to be doing this is a redo. This is kind of a reboot. And if there's another way and a better way to do it to get us the next 50 or 100 years, we should be thinking about that. The last thing we want to do is spend $500 million and then to raise it and have the truck route right through town and have that be a parking lot for 16 hours a day because there's so many cars and they can't move anywhere. So, so I think we have to really look at this from a couple different angles. I think the resiliency angle is important, but I think the other angles are going to be really important too. And I know this is not news to Leah because we talk about this and she hears me drone on about this all the time, but I think that it's important for us, to the public and planning office, et cetera, to be thinking this way. Mike Burns, et cetera. Thank you.
Brooke?
Yeah, I concur that we need to keep this project moving forward. When you just look at the timeline of permitting, we can't afford to wait because we don't want to run up against, we need it sooner than we're able to get it done. The fact that we're leading on this and moving ahead incrementally, I think is really important. And, I agree with Matt, like, does this have to be the route to the ferry? Have we thought about other, I just hadn't really thought about it that way. Do we retreat the route rather than raise it all the way or have a plan to retreat it? I think it's worth thinking about.
Don, is it okay if I comment on that? So during the coastal resilience plan development, the question of do we abandon Easy Street came up, and the public did not like that. So that was off the table.
If I may,
Yes, of course.
Easy Street 8 feet higher is not the Easy Street that people are worried about abandoning. So, and I think the visualization piece is going to be really important as well. So, people imagine giving up the thing they have today, but if the thing they have today they can't have, and it's going to be 8 feet higher, they're making a different calculation on what the cost of that abandonment is.
Yeah, I understand that. I just wanted to clarify. It's an 8 feet for NAVD 88. So if you're actually on Easy Street at the lowest point, if we're talking about 8 feet design flood elevation, it's about a 5 foot increase. still high, but
It's
just
Yeah,
wanted to
it's
clarify that.
elevation 8,
Yeah.
not an 8.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. It would be at eye level for me.
Me too.
If
Yeah,
I'm,
you'll be right at about tar. I mean, right about car wheel height. They'll be driving by. Some of those pictures have them driving by right at the head height. So if we don't raise the sidewalks and the buildings, so and I think in fairness to a lot of the owners down there, if they know that over this period of time you're going to be lifting your building, and on this date and this period, in this 2-year period, we're going to be doing this road, or in this 1-year period, we're doing this road, people can plan for that. But if we kind of like put our head in the sand and not move forward on this, no one will be able to plan for anything. And so, and the buildings will be ruined, and people will expend money putting in basements and things and trying to keep the water out when they maybe shouldn't be doing that at all. And so I think that we've got to, I think it's good that we're on top of this.
Okay, you want to move on to the next?
Sure. And just, yep, thank you. So this in the CRP on page 250, if you went to that, you would see that there's a table like this, and it includes all of the 40 recommendations that is within the coastal resilience plan. So again, this is on the pending contracts next week. The goal is to help the town communicate progress to stakeholders and refine near and midterm capital needs to support budgeting processes and projections. So this need has come up, I would say, probably over the last year or so, both within the Natural Resources Department, but also with town admin, with Capital Programs Committee, probably the Finance Committee. And so the task would be to update this table with cost estimates that include escalation to 2026, because what's in the CRP is 2020 dollars. And then it would document project statuses. So just to give an overview, almost, if not more than half of the recommendations are either complete or underway or in development. So we've made a lot of progress since this was endorsed 4 years ago. But it would update the statuses so it's easier to be able to communicate that to the public. And it would document key project stakeholders for each of the recommendations. And then it would update the project prioritization. So the circles that are different colors indicate the different priorities. And so that would be updated if needed. And then also the target implementation years as appropriate. And again, the cost estimates. So this is, the contract would be $10,000. Arcata said that they could do it. They were the consultants that did the whole CRP, and they said it would take about 8 weeks to complete. So this would be, this is really important to help update the, I always get mixed up with the CIP. Is that right, Greg? Okay. So that would help update that. So just wanted to put that out there as well.
I have a question. How are they going to update the estimates? Are they going to put a sort of just an escalator, like a cost of living onto it? Or are they going to actually go out and sort of bid this or do any sort of looking at pricing or anything?
So I would have to ask them. Bill, I don't know if you're still on there.
I am.
He is.
Okay. Bill, do you know the answer to that, or should we get back to Matt?
No, I think what we would do here is I haven't looked into the estimates, how they were prepared for this document in quite some time, but a lot of work's really been done over this duration, not only on Nantucket, but elsewhere. So there's better costing data available. So we'll be relying on some of that data, comparing it to the data that we have here. And so it's not just a straight up escalated through ENR adjustment factor. Each one of these estimates is going to get looked at again and adjusted accordingly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a combination, that makes sense. Okay. And I
And-
think this is, yeah, this, we're gonna talk about it in a couple of weeks, but I will say one of the big successes that I've seen with the coastal resiliency is there's enough horsepower and they're keeping track. You know, your department is keeping track of what's being done and, you know, and bringing it up to the committee every meeting just about. And so we actually are making progress. And, you know, so I think it's what we, you know, it's a really good model. And adding the numbers to it, I used to argue back in the comp plan days with John Pagini that it wasn't enough to track it. You had to know what it was going to cost. And, you know, because I'm a numbers guy. So he and I would fight about that all the time. But I think that that is, you know, sort of what we're doing. We're keeping track of it. And we have people who own it and are going to make sure it gets done and that we're going to update it and know how much it's going to cost and how we're going to pay for it. I mean, I think that those, you know, this is how we need to do these big things. And sometimes we kind of forget that there is a ton of work to stay on top of this and to move things forward. So I think you guys are doing a good job at it.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, it's important to me that it's not a stagnant plan and just something sitting on the shelf. So we've said like every 5 to 10 years, it should get updated because the risks are going to get updated as time goes on too. So this is, you know, it's almost 5 years out. So this is a good start.
I was going to ask a question, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. Well, it's actually not directed to you, Leo, but at our planning session, we did discuss having a separate workshop for like the downtown flood barrier with our resiliency team and maybe crack. And I don't know if that's still on the select board's mind. So get that out there. That's similar to what we did to the SOAR master plan, and it was pretty effective. So if we're interested in that, I'll work the town manager and the sustainability team to get it together. And in addition, we do have two contracts for resiliency on for next week. We have pending contracts next week. Are we set to have those on? It's one is for an update of the CRP projects, as Leah just explained, and one is to continue with the 4 tasks that we were just presented.
They're
I
ready
think
to
we should
go.
definitely do the
think we should.
workshop.
Yeah.
And how is everybody okay with moving forward with the contracts?
I am. I don't know.
I am.
Yes.
Okay,
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next up, we have select board reports and comments. Malcolm's not here tonight, but in regard to an update on the investigation of the African Meeting House vandalism, the investigation is progressing. The investigator is working on it and will continue to keep the public informed as we can. Any committee reports? Nobody?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Don Hill, aye. That carries unanimously. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.